Hello, and welcome to the Focusing Way podcast, available on iTunes and Stitcher. I'm your host, David Battistella. Welcome to part 2 of our conversation with Karen Liebenguth of Green Space Life Coaching. We continue our conversation about focusing in nature. And I'm sensing that even you in your work are drawing on that nature. What effect is that having on you when you're able to slow down to the pace of nature in that park?
Yeah.
What's that bringing to your ability to help or be present?
Well, in nature, outdoors, whether it's in my local park or in the countryside, that's really where I'm most at ease, where I feel most at home, most content, most connected to myself and sort of to the world. And when I'm outdoors in nature then, and I slow down, I'm present, I feel grounded, I feel patient, and I feel spacious to offer something of value to my clients. So by being in the environment that is conducive and beneficial to me and where I feel at ease and most resourceful, I feel that then I can offer something of value to my clients and really create sort of safe focusing space and space in which clients can explore some deeper experience.
It sounds like a very supportive environment for you as well.
Very much, yeah. And of course, it's when I'm in a good place and I'm calm and spacious and open, and when my heart is open and my mind and my soul, of course, then that has an impact on my clients. Then that can be very inviting and trusting, and I always hope inspiring, and I can offer something that is helpful.
So lovely. So, although we're talking about when people are together and we're focusing, and even though we can solo focus, and that's something people do, focusing partnership is really sort of the cornerstone to the entire process that you're speaking about. Maybe could you talk a little bit about the power of focusing partnership?
Yeah, it's very dear to my heart, and I always say when I introduce people to focusing that the power of focusing really lies in the partnership. And of course, that's not just me saying it. Many practitioners, focusing practitioners, say this and know it from their own practice. And I think it's sort of, although it's sort of complex, of course, as any process is between two people, because we are complex human beings. But really, it's quite simple, I think. The power of focusing lies in the fact that there are two people in the focusing partnership, the focuser and the listener. And the power lies in the reflecting back, that there's one person who shares some of their experience of what's going on for them, and that the listener reflects some of that back. And the reflecting back to the focuser allows the focuser to explore more deeply the experience, to drop deeper into the experience, to know more of what's actually going on at a deeper level. That's the power for me. The power of having two people and the reflecting back. I mean, where else do we have that in our life? Where we have someone who deeply listens to us and reflects back what they hear so that we can check, is that right? And then you can let that resonate and check again and yeah, that's what it is. No, that's not what it is. Let's see, what is it? And it's such a powerful process of exploring what is it that's going on inside, because sometimes we sit with these, I'm sure everybody knows this, and I have this, I sometimes feel there's something niggling me, or there's something that feels uncomfortable inside, and I just can't quite figure out what's going on. And the focusing process allows me to explore what is it, and then all of a sudden I feel clear, or something shifts, or I think, that's what it is about, or yeah, it's powerful.
Mm-hmm. It's so important how you mentioned the listening, and of course, sort of in focusing, we take turns, and people take turns focusing and listening. But it's the role of the listener so important in the sense of holding space while you allow another person to experience what they're going through, or to explore what they want answered.
Yeah.
And doing it in a way that is sort of supportive and holding the space. Could you talk a little bit about the role of the listener in the process?
Yeah. I've always been very interested in the role of the listener, because sometimes, for my liking, the role of the listener doesn't get enough attention and enough praise in the focusing world. But I actually think we need both, and both have equal importance in the focusing partnership. Often, of course, in focusing, it is sort of stressed that the process belongs to the focuser, and because they explore their experience, and it's very important in focusing that the listener doesn't interpret what they hear and reflect back, that they don't analyze, that they don't comment or make suggestions. Because often in our sort of culture, we think we need to give advice, and we think we need to solve problems and fix things, and often it's very well meant, of course, but it's often the least what we need when we have something we need to talk through. So, of course, the process belongs to the focuser in the focusing partnership. But without the listener, the focuser can't go deeper in exploring their experience. So the role of the listener is crucial in the partnership, because they hold, as you said, they hold together with the focuser the space. So both create the focusing field in which the focusing happens. And focusing can only happen when there is a focuser who is willing to share some of what they are noticing inside, and then the listener reflecting back some of what they have heard in the language of the focuser, and then give the focuser time to check back whether that resonates. And it's the listener who encourages the focuser to perhaps describe whatever is there, what it feels like in the body. And so you can maybe already understand how important the role of the listener is to really listen and to reflect back in the focuser's words. And that is also not an easy thing to do, to stay with the language of the focuser, to not put own words into it. And that's a real skill. Listening, and then also really, really being precise and remembering what they've heard. So that's a few things, I think, the core things why I think the role of the listener is crucial, and what the role is really, what it involves, because one could think, oh yeah, the listener listens. But of course, there's a lot to it.
Everything you're saying is reminding me so much of how important I had aha moments as a focuser.
Yeah.
Because the listening is so important when you're listening to your own inner voice.
Mm-hmm.
And can we really be there present to listen to that voice in the way it's coming?
Mm-hmm.
So the listening for others gets translated so beautifully into our own focusing when we listen to ourselves with that same sort of holding attention and awareness. So I think the role of the listener is so important because it makes people much, much better focusers because of the style of listening and attention and awareness they can bring to themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And also I think when we learn how to listen in the focusing way, I think we begin to take that skill into our day-to-day life and understand how valuable really the real listening is. Because I think it's a really it's something we don't do very much. We as in, we in modern busy life, we don't do, because our life has become too fast, I think, too fast-paced to listen deeply.
I agree, and it's happened in such a short time in our evolution, just the last 125 or 150 years. Our organisms have had to adapt to so much change. We're only 4 or 5 generations away from people who only ate food that grew very close to them, and now just in our food, we it sort of comes from everywhere in the world, and the speed and pace of our planet is almost moving more rapidly than we can keep up. So slowing down is a beautiful way to reconnect to that part of us that I'm sure I've certainly experienced. Many people feel that part, that things are moving quickly, and how can I just put the brakes on a little bit just to be able to better understand what's going on.
Yeah. So it's greatly helpful, I think, focusing and listening for our day-to-day life, because we can bring little focusing moments into our day-to-day life and have moments where we can listen in that way to ourselves and keep some of ourselves company and listen to ourselves in that way. So we can do the focusing and listening for ourselves when we become more familiar with the focusing way and how focusing works. So we can bring it into our lives and enrich our experience of our life, deepen the experience of our day-to-day life through focusing. And I think having another person being our companion or listener is the most powerful, because then we only have to be the focuser or the listener. So only fulfill one role.
I don't think I could have said that any better. It feels so right that's just a really nice place for us to close our conversation today, our focusing-oriented conversation. And I just would like to thank you again for taking the time to share your voice and your experience and your style and your way of being.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Focusing Way podcast, available on iTunes and Stitcher. I'm your host, David Battistella.